The bell above the door gave a tired jingle as Ava Walker stepped into the corner market on Elm Street. The place smelled faintly of floor cleaner and aging bread. She waved at the cashier out of habit, her fingers still cold from the early autumn air outside. She wasn't here for herself. She'd promised the ladies at the still-standing shelter she'd bring snacks for Friday's workshop, the one where the younger girls braided hair and talked about futures they weren't sure they'd ever reach. Ava had always liked those afternoons. They were loud, messy, a little chaotic, but real. She walked slowly along the aisles, mentally checking off items. Trail mix, juice boxes, crackers with those fake cheese spreads the girls pretended to hate but always finished. Her cart squeaked with each push. She didn't rush. Near the back freezer, she heard it, a soft rustling, almost like someone brushing against shelves too quickly. She rounded the corner and saw him. A boy, maybe 16, maybe younger, crouched low near the bread rack. His clothes were thin, sleeves pulled over his hands, shoes too big. One heel flopped out with each movement. His backpack hung half-zipped, frayed at the seams. In his hand, a roll already half-crushed. He looked up. Their eyes met. It only lasted a second. But in that second, something inside her chest shifted, tilted, like a door cracking open after being shut for years. The boy bolted. He was fast, but not silent. A display of canned peaches toppled as he darted past. A security guard yelled. The automatic doors lagged as he slammed into them, stumbled, kept running. Ava stood frozen in the aisle, one hand resting on a box of granola bars. "He took something," the guard shouted, already puffing as he gave chase. Ava stepped into the path, her voice steady. "Let him go." The guard paused. "Ma'am? I'll pay for it. Whatever it was." The man hesitated, eyes flicking to the manager who'd come out from behind the counter. After a beat, he shrugged and turned back. The store slowly settled again. Cans picked up, mutters exchanged. Ava stayed still, her cart abandoned. She walked outside. Across the street, under the overhang of an old print shop, the boy was there, crouched again, eating the smashed roll in quick bites, as if time itself might steal it from him. His hand shook. Ava didn't cross. She just watched. He didn't notice her this time. When he was done, he wiped his mouth with his sleeve. For a moment, he looked straight ahead, not seeing. Then he stood, adjusted the falling strap of his bag, and disappeared into the alley behind the print shop. Ava crossed the street only after he'd gone. The crumpled napkin he'd dropped lay on the sidewalk, speckled with sesame seeds. She picked it up. It was still warm. She sat down on the bench nearby. Cars passed. A dog barked from somewhere down the block. The world, as always, kept moving. But she didn't. Not for a while. Back at the shelter, the women laughed as she returned, late, cart loaded. No one noticed how quiet she was. No one asked why her hands stayed clenched in her coat pockets long after she came inside. That night, Ava lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. The overhead fan made a soft ticking noise. In her mind, she saw him again, the way his eyes flicked up and locked with hers. They were light brown, almost amber in the right light. Not many people had eyes like that. Only one person she'd ever known. 16 years ago. She sat up slowly, fingers pressed to her temples. Then she stood, went to the drawer beside her bed, and pulled it open. Inside, a folded paper. Yellowed at the edges. An ultrasound photo, blurred but still intact. Her hands trembled. She didn't cry. Not yet. But the words echoed anyway, not from her lips, but from somewhere deeper, older, and buried. "He has your eyes," whispered the voice inside her. Your eyes, 16 years later. The shelter quieted after 9. Most of the women were in their rooms by then, doors closed, laughter and voices dimming into muffled pockets behind painted walls. Ava walked the hallway slowly, her heels soft against the worn laminate. She stopped at the end, where the window overlooked the alley, and leaned against the cool frame. Riverview didn't sleep, not really. A siren in the distance. The hum of a vending machine outside the laundromat across the street. Life in pieces, constant and restless. She hadn't told anyone about the boy. Not yet. She'd watched him vanish behind the print shop, But she hadn't gone after him. Something had kept her feet rooted. Fear maybe. Or disbelief. Or the kind of ache that came from recognizing something you weren't ready to name. The next morning she returned. Same market. Same time. She didn't need more snacks, but she bought them anyway. Crackers, apples, those little juice cartons with bendy straws. She lingered near the front this time, sipping cheap coffee from a paper cup, her coat zipped all the way up despite the sun. At 10:17, he showed up. Same boy. Same bag. But this time, he didn't go for the food. He walked past the entrance and headed down the block, moving fast, like he knew he'd been seen. Ava followed. Not close. Just enough to keep him in sight. He cut behind a row of buildings, ducked through a narrow path between a fence and a stack of discarded mattresses. At the far end, he slipped into a structure that barely looked livable, a makeshift shed pressed against the side of a condemned dry cleaner's. Ava stopped short of the clearing. She could see him through a gap in the boards. He unzipped the backpack and pulled out a half blanket. Sat cross-legged. Began tearing apart a granola bar with careful fingers. He wasn't shaking this time, but his eyes kept darting to the broken doorway, alert, ready to run. Ava backed away, step by step, until the clearing vanished behind overgrown weeds. She didn't try to speak to him. Not yet. 2 days later, he appeared at the shelter. It was raining, not heavy, but enough to soak through the cuffs of his sleeves. Ava was in the entry hall, wiping mud from her shoes, when the door buzzed. She opened it herself. He didn't look surprised to see her. Just tired. Shelter's full, he said before she could speak. It's not, she replied. He shrugged. I don't stay places. Just need some food. There was no drama in his voice. No desperation. Just the matter-of-fact tone of someone who'd learned not to expect much. She stepped aside. He didn't enter. Instead, he looked past her, toward the warm hallway, the scent of lentils and cornbread floating from the shared kitchen. Name, she asked gently. A long pause. Then quietly, Isaiah. She wrote it down, even though she already knew she wouldn't forget. Have a seat, she said, gesturing to the bench by the door. I'll bring something out. He didn't thank her, but he sat. Inside the kitchen, she fixed a plate. Chicken. A roll still warm from the oven. A banana, because he looked like he needed it. When she came back out, he was gone. The bench was empty. The sidewalk wet. The plate remained in her hands, the roll cooling fast. That night, Ava sat in the common room long after the others had gone. The TV played quietly, an old sitcom rerun with the laugh track too loud. She didn't watch it. In her lap, a clipboard, a half-filled intake form. She traced the name she'd written earlier. Isaiah. Her pen hovered. There were no last names. No date of birth. No emergency contact. Just the words scrawled across the top in hurried handwriting. All capital letters. She tucked the form under a stack. Locked the drawer. Before heading upstairs, she opened the cabinet where they kept old shelter records. Not the public ones, the ones for staff eyes only. Runaways. Foster dropouts. Repeat visitors who used different names. She flipped through them until her fingers slowed. Birth date, July 19th. Mother, not listed. Placement, temporary foster, 2 months. Then transferred. No follow-up. She closed the folder gently. The edges were brittle. Outside, rain tapped against the windows in soft, irregular rhythms. Ava stood still, one hand on the cabinet door, the other clenched at her side. She didn't cry. Instead, she walked back to her room, sat on the edge of the bed, and picked up the ultrasound photo again. The paper was beginning to tear at the fold. In the quiet, she whispered one word. Isaiah. Not with certainty. Not yet. But with something close to memory. The drive to Willow Creek felt longer than she remembered. Ava hadn't been back in 6 years. Not since the day Lena slammed the door after their last argument. Voices low but sharp, full of things they never said growing up but carried like stones in their pockets. She didn't bring a suitcase, just a small overnight bag and a tin of lemon cookies from the Riverview Bakery. Lena used to love those. Maybe she still did. Ava wasn't sure. It was just after 4 in the afternoon when she turned onto Maple Lane. The leaves were starting to turn. Gold, orange, the kind of red that glowed when sunlight hit just right. The houses stood close together, each with porches wide enough to sit and talk, but rarely used that way anymore. She parked 2 doors down. The house was the same. White siding. Blue shutters. A wind chime on the porch that never made much noise. A worn welcome mat, edges curled. She stood on the steps longer than necessary, fingers tightening around the cookie tin. Then she knocked. The door opened a few inches. The pause. Then it swung wider. Lena stood in the frame, apron tied at her waist, a wooden spoon in one hand. Her eyes flicked to Ava's face, then down to her shoes, then back up. Neither of them spoke. From deeper inside the house, a voice called, "Is it the package?" Lena didn't look away as she answered, "No, this is my sister." Footsteps approached. A man stepped into view. Tall, calm eyes. A little gray at the temples. Ava remembered him. Not well, but enough. Ethan Parker. Lena's second chance, if she believed in those. He nodded. Ava. Ethan. He stepped aside without being asked. Come in. The warmth hit her first. Then the scent, tomato sauce, garlic, something baking. Familiar and foreign all at once. Ava stepped inside, the cookie tin still clutched tightly. Lena led her to the dining room without a word. The table was set for 4. Plates stacked. A small vase of fresh marigolds in the center. I didn't know you were coming, Lena said. I didn't either. Ava placed the tin gently on the table. You brought cookies, Lena said, not touching them. You used to like them. That was a long time ago. They sat. Silence settled in like dust. Ethan excused himself, murmuring something about stirring the pot. He gave them space without disappearing entirely, just enough to be near if needed. From upstairs, footsteps thudded lightly. A voice floated down. Mom? Who's at the door? A girl appeared at the railing, tall, curly hair pulled into a loose ponytail, glasses slightly askew. Sophie, Lena called. Come down and say hi. She did. Sophie was older now. 14, maybe 15. The last time Ava saw her, she was still missing her 2 front teeth, singing off-key at Christmas. Hi, Sophie said politely, eyeing the stranger. Ava stood. You've grown. Sophie tilted her head. Do I know you? I'm your aunt. Oh. A blink. You're Ava. That's me. Sophie looked at her mother, then back. Want me to set an extra plate? Lena hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Thank you, sweetheart. The girl disappeared into the kitchen. Ava sat again. You don't look well, Lena said. Neither do you. That broke it, just enough. They smiled, thin and brief. Dinner was simple. Pasta, salad, fresh bread. Ethan carried most of the conversation, asking Sophie about school, talking about the community garden project downtown. Lena chimed in occasionally. Ava listened more than she spoke. No one asked why she came. After dinner, Sophie offered to do dishes. Ethan helped. The 2 women found themselves alone on the porch, just as the sun dipped below the trees. Lena wrapped her cardigan tighter. Ava held a mug of tea, hands wrapped around it like an anchor. You didn't drive all the way from Riverview just for cookies, Lena said finally. No. Then say it. Ava looked out at the quiet street. A bike leaned against a fence. Wind stirred the chimes above. I think I found him. Lena turned sharply. Who? My son. The words didn't echo. They just hung there. I thought you said he was adopted. I thought so too. Lena didn't speak. Ava went on, voice steady. I saw a boy stealing food. At the market near the shelter. And when I looked at him, it wasn't just that he was hungry. It was something else. The eyes. His name. You asked his name? He told me. Isaiah. Lena's lips pressed into a line. Do you know how many Isaiahs there are? I know. But it wasn't just the name. Then what? Ava looked down at the tea in her lap. It had gone cold. Something in me recognized him before my mind did. Like my body knew. I've been holding my breath for 16 years, and just now remembered how to breathe. Lena didn't respond right away. Then, what are you going to do? I don't know. Silence. You think he'll want to know you? Lena asked, not cruel, just real. I don't think he even knows who I am. Then what's the plan? Ava breathed, slow. First, I have to make him believe I want him. Lena didn't nod. Didn't agree. But she didn't get up, either. That, for now, was enough. The next morning, the kettle whistled in the kitchen before the sun had fully risen. Ava sat at the edge of Lena's couch, blanket wrapped around her legs, watching steam curl from her mug. The house creaked like it remembered them, two sisters with too many closed doors between them. Lena entered the room barefoot, hair tied up messily, coffee in hand. She didn't say good morning. Just sat down across from her, their knees almost touching over the old rug. You ever gonna tell me the full story? She asked, quiet but direct. Ava stared into her tea. I was 17, she began, slow, scared, and stupid, and alone. Lena didn't interrupt. It was just one night, Ava continued. He was older. Not by much. But enough. I thought it meant something. He didn't. She paused, let the words settle. I didn't tell anyone. Not even you. I didn't want Mom to find out. She would have sent me away anyway. But I started showing. Just a little. I tried to hide it. Loose shirts. Oversized hoodies. Lena leaned back slightly, brow furrowing. I never noticed. I know. I got good at disappearing. Even when I was home. A silence settled, warm and sad. Ava's voice dropped lower. When I finally admitted it, she didn't yell. She didn't even cry. Just packed my bag and sent me to Riverview. A program for girls like me. That's what they called it. I thought you left for a scholarship, Lena whispered. I told you that because it sounded better than being pregnant and ashamed. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the ultrasound photo, folded, worn, edges curling. She placed it on the coffee table between them. Lena stared. I named him Isaiah before he was even born, Ava said. I wrote it in a notebook. Over and over. I thought, if I said it enough, it would be real. She picked up the photo, smoothed it flat with her fingertips. When he was born, I held him for exactly 9 minutes before they took him. I wasn't even allowed to choose where he went. Open adoption, they said. But I never saw the paperwork. Lena's hands tightened around her cup. I asked about him once a year. Called the agency. Left messages. No one ever answered. I sent birthday cards for 3 years. Never got one back. Ava looked up, finally meeting her sister's eyes. And then I stopped. I told myself it was better for him if I disappeared. That I had nothing to offer anyway. Lena's voice came low from, You had me. I didn't know how to ask. They sat with that. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. After a while, Lena spoke again. If he's the same Isaiah you saw, what do you do now? I don't know, Ava said truthfully. He doesn't know me. Doesn't want help. But he's living in a shed behind a shut-down dry cleaner. Eating whatever he can steal. Lena's face softened. How old is he now? 16. Maybe 17. Lena exhaled through her nose. Sophie's 14. I know. They both looked toward the hallway, where Sophie's school bag sat by the door. Then Lena said, Do you want to go see him? Ava nodded slowly. Yes. But not as a stranger. Not with lies. Then tell him the truth. Ava blinked. And if he hates me? Then at least he knows who to hate, Lena said. But it's better than him thinking no one wanted him. They finished their tea in silence. That afternoon, Ava returned to Riverview. The shelter was busy, volunteers prepping for the weekend event, staff folding donated clothes in the back room. Ava moved through it all like someone coming home after a long detour. She stopped by her office, pulled out a plain white envelope, and sat down at her desk. She didn't write a speech. Didn't plan every word. She just wrote. Not with the hope that he'd read it, but with the need that he might. She told him what she remembered, the name she whispered before they took him. The blue blanket she tucked around his tiny feet. The first time he opened his eyes, and how she thought no one in the world would ever look at her that way again. She didn't say, I'm sorry, more than once. She didn't ask him to forgive her. She ended the letter with a line she had written in that notebook 16 years ago. If you ever find me, just know I never stopped looking for you. She signed it simply, Ava. She folded it once, placed it in the envelope, wrote his name on the front. To Isaiah. The bus depot on Pine Avenue never truly slept. Even past midnight, it pulsed, with blinking monitors, tired travelers, vending machines humming against the wall. The benches were cold, metal, unforgiving. Isaiah sat curled at the far end of the terminal, hood up, eyes half closed. A paper bag rested at his side. He hadn't eaten the sandwich yet. The woman behind the counter had handed it to him with a half smile and a whispered, "It's extra." He hadn't asked. The letter was in his backpack. He hadn't opened it. He wasn't sure why he'd taken it at all. She'd left it on the steps of the shelter 2 nights ago. A clean envelope with his name, just Isaiah, written carefully. No last name. No return address. He saw her place it there. She didn't knock. She looked around once, then walked away. Isaiah waited a full minute before getting up. Took the envelope. Tucked it into his bag like it didn't matter. But now it was all he could think about. He pulled it out again. The corners were soft now, edges bent. His thumb ran over the handwriting, slow, like it might tell him something just from the feel. The first word inside was his name. He didn't read it all. Just the beginning. And the end. If you ever find me, just know I never stopped looking for you. He folded it shut, pressed it against his knee. A long breath left him, not quite a sigh. Someone sat beside him. Turned, startled but not scared. It was her, Ava. She didn't say anything at first. Just sat there, hands in her lap. Her coat was too light for the chill. "I didn't follow you," she said quietly. "I just guessed." He looked away. The air between them was thin, like something stretching too tight. "I used to come here," she added. "When I first moved to Riverview. I'd sit and watch buses leave. Think about buying a ticket. Any direction." Isaiah didn't answer. "I wasn't running," she said. "I was hoping someone might notice I was gone." His mouth twitched. "Just barely." "You don't have to talk," Ava said. "I'm not going anywhere," he replied without looking at her. Her eyes flicked toward him, surprised. "I mean," he added, "I'm just sitting here. You don't scare me." A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. He held up the letter. "Why now?" Ava didn't rush her reply. "I didn't think I deserved to find you. Until recently." "And now you do?" "No," she said softly. "But I don't want to let that stop me anymore." Isaiah's fingers tightened on the edge of the letter. "I don't know what you want from me," he said. "Nothing," she replied. "Just to know you're safe." "That's not true," he said sharply. "People don't come back for nothing." "I came back because I saw you," she said. "And I knew. Even before I was sure. The beat. You have your father's eyes." Isaiah looked at her then. Really looked. "And yours," he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded, lips pressed tight. "I'm not looking for a mom," he said. "I've been fine without one." "I believe you. I don't need saving." "I wouldn't try," Ava said. "You already survived the hard part." They sat for a long while. A janitor swept the far end of the terminal. A bus engine rumbled somewhere outside. An old man slept sitting upright, his arms crossed over his chest. "You don't talk like other people," Isaiah muttered. "I used to." "What happened?" "Life," she said. "Mostly my own choices." Isaiah let that sit. Then he asked, "Do you know where I was? All these years?" "No," she said. "Tried." "I really did." He nodded slowly. "I remember one place. When I was little. It had yellow walls. A woman named Miss Alma gave us crackers. But I got moved a lot. After that I stopped remembering." "I'm sorry," Ava whispered. "Why'd you give me up?" He didn't yell it. Didn't spit it like poison. Just asked it. And that made it worse. Ava didn't lie. Because I was young. And scared. And I believed them when they said I wasn't enough. He nodded again. And then he stood. She didn't stop him. But before walking away, he turned back. "You keep showing up like this," he said, I might start believing you mean it. And he left, not running, not hiding, just walking into the night like it belonged to him. Ava remained on the bench. The vending machine behind her blinked once. A bus pulled in, then out again. And the letter stayed in her hand, still warm where his fingers had been. The office at Still Standing was small, tucked behind the laundry room, its window facing a narrow strip of ivy and broken sidewalk. The space smelled like dust and pepperminty. Ava's doing. She liked simple scents, ones that didn't demand attention but stayed in the room long after you left. That morning, she unlocked the drawer in her desk and pulled out the shoebox. It had no label, no lock, but inside were years, birthday cards, holiday notes, a folded paper with a smiley face she'd once drawn beside the words, "I miss you every day." Nothing had ever been mailed. Most didn't even have stamps. Ava never knew where to send them, but she wrote them anyway. Notebooks, napkins, scraps of envelope corners. The words had to go somewhere, or they'd rot inside her. She pulled one out at random. December 3rd, 2013. You're 5 today. I imagine you like dinosaurs or maybe trucks. Or maybe you love music. I used to hum to you, remember? Probably not. But I do. She placed it aside and pulled another. July 19th, 2017. Happy birthday, baby. You're 9 now. Do you wonder where you came from? Do you ever feel like a shadow is missing from the wall when you walk by it? Her handwriting shifted year to year. Neat then hurried. Smeared from tears some days. Shaky on others. They were all addressed to one name. Isaiah. She bundled the letters with a ribbon she pulled from the bottom of the box. Red, slightly frayed. Then she took the bundle and slipped it into a padded envelope. Wrote only his name on the front. No last name. Just Isaiah, again. The next evening he showed up at the shelter's back gate. Didn't knock. Just leaned on the fence, waiting. Ava was sweeping the front step when she saw him through the slats. She didn't rush. Just set the broom aside and walked slowly to meet him. He nodded once. You're always working. You showed up again. I said I might. She smiled but didn't say more. He shifted, kicking a pebble near his foot. You got food. There's stew inside. Still warm. He looked past her, not quite ready. She reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope. These are yours. You don't have to read them. I just wanted you to have them. He took it, careful like it might break. What is it? Letters. I wrote them every year. Just in case. Isaiah didn't answer. He turned the envelope over once, then slipped it into his jacket. I don't like people feeling sorry for me, he said. I don't. Good. He paused. I don't know what you're supposed to be to me, he added. Mother? Stranger? Mistake? Ava didn't flinch. I can't answer that for you, she said. But I'll be here. However you decide to see me. They stood in the golden spill of dusk, the world soft around them. Then quietly Isaiah asked, Can I eat out here? Ava nodded. I'll bring 2 bowls. She returned a minute later, soup steaming, cornbread still wrapped in a paper napkin. They sat on the edge of the loading dock, legs swinging just above the ground. No big conversation. No declarations. Just quiet. And soup. And the sound of a boy chewing like he hadn't had a warm meal in days. Ava didn't watch him eat. She stared at the sky, the soft lavender streaks, the fading orange clouds. But her hand rested lightly between them on the wood, close enough to feel him beside her. That night, after he left, she didn't cry. She just folded a fresh piece of paper and wrote, July 19th, 2025. Tonight, you came back. You didn't run. You didn't yell. You sat with me. And that was enough. She tucked the letter into the empty shoebox. And for the first time, she left the drawer unlocked. The next weekend, Ava returned to Willow Creek. The trees along Maple Lane were now in full color, their leaves carpeting the sidewalks like a painting undone by wind. She parked in the same spot as before, 2 houses down, and walked up the path, carrying nothing this time. Lena opened the door before she knocked. You're early, she said. I left right after breakfast. Lena stepped aside. Sophie's upstairs. She's been asking about you. Ava entered, slipping off her shoes and setting them neatly by the door. The house smelled like cinnamon and something baking. "Pumpkin bread," Lena said, catching her glance toward the kitchen. "She made it herself." Ava smiled. She always was good with her hands. "She's curious." "Careful but curious." Ava nodded. They didn't say Isaiah's name, but they both felt it between the words. Upstairs, Sophie's door was slightly ajar. Ava knocked softly. "Yeah?" came the voice inside. Ava pushed the door open. Sophie sat on the carpet, surrounded by books and scraps of notebook paper. Her hair was pulled into a bun, loose strands framing her face. Glasses balanced on the tip of her nose. She looked up, surprised, but not startled. "And Ava." "Hi, sweetheart." Sophie set down her pen. "You're back. I missed your pumpkin bread." She grinned. "It came out okay. A little burnt on the bottom." "Those are the best parts," Ava said, easing down beside her. They sat in silence for a moment, looking over the scattered papers. "Homework?" Ava asked. "Kind of. I'm writing something. For English. Personal essay." "Want to share?" Sophie shrugged. "Not done yet. I keep changing my mind about the title." Ava nodded, letting it go. Then Sophie asked, "Is it true you had a son?" The question came without warning. Not harsh. Just honest. Ava didn't flinch. "Yes." Sophie looked down at her hands. "Did he live with you?" "No. I gave birth when I was 17. I wasn't allowed to keep him." "Why not?" Ava took a breath. "I was young. Alone. And the people around me made choices for me. Choices I didn't know how to fight." Sophie was quiet. "Then, does he know you now?" "Not exactly," Ava said. "But we've seen each other. Talked a little." "Do you think he'll want to be part of your life?" "I don't know. I hope so. But I'm not expecting anything." Sophie nodded slowly. "I think it's good you told me." Ava smiled. "Why?" "Because Mom didn't." "Not really. I overheard." Ava's smile faded slightly. "She and Dad were in the kitchen last night. I wasn't trying to listen. But I heard your name. And his." The pause. "I think they were scared for you." Ava looked at her gently. "That's fair." Sophie picked at a loose thread on the carpet. "He must be my cousin." "Yes." "Is he nice?" Ava thought for a moment. "He's strong. Quiet. Like someone who's learned a lot from silence." Sophie tilted her head. "Is he sad?" "Sometimes. But I think he's also braver than he knows." Sophie nodded again. "I'd like to meet him." Ava didn't respond right away. Then she said, "Maybe one day. When he's ready." "Okay." They sat for a while longer, flipping through Sophie's pages. One had a poem. Another, a sketch of a tree, its roots twisting into words. Sophie pointed at it. "That one's about family. The parts we see and the parts we don't." Ava touched the corner of the page. "It's beautiful." "You think he'd like it?" Ava looked at her. "I think he'd understand it. Better than most." Downstairs, the pumpkin bread cooled on a wire rack. Lena leaned against the counter, arms crossed, listening to the soft hum of voices above. Ethan came in from the back porch, wiping his hands. "They talking?" Lena nodded. "She told her." "Good." Lena exhaled. "I forget sometimes that Sophie's not a little girl anymore. She's got your eyes. And your questions." Lena smiled faintly. "She's always watching." They stood in the quiet of the kitchen, the smell of cinnamon thick around them. Ethan poured 2 mugs of coffee and passed one to her. Lena looked at the ceiling. "She's going to want to meet him." "And maybe she should," Ethan said gently. "Eventually." Lena sipped her coffee. "Not yet," she said. "No," Ethan agreed. "But someday." That evening, Ava hugged Sophie goodbye on the front porch. The wind had picked up, scattering leaves across the steps. "Will you visit again soon?" Sophie asked. "Soon as I can." Sophie held the door open. "Next time, I'll bake something better." "Don't you dare," Ava smiled. "You'll spoil me." Sophie laughed, then closed the door behind her. Ava stood alone for a moment, watching the light inside. Then she turned and walked down the path, each step quieter than the last. The wind carried the scent of cinnamon behind her. And for the first time in a long while, Ava let herself believe. Some doors, once closed, could open again. The Thursday afternoon workshop at Still Standing started like most others, folding chairs in a circle, tubs of hair products on the floor, and music playing low from a Bluetooth speaker someone had balanced on a windowsill. Laughter echoed off the old plaster walls. Girls braided, twisted, clipped. Some chatted about school or TikTok or boys who'd said something stupid at lunch. Ava sat near the back, her clipboard on her lap, pretending to review the attendance sheet. But her eyes kept drifting toward the girl in the corner. She hadn't been there before. Maybe 13, maybe younger. She wore a hoodie 2 sizes too big, sleeves pulled over her hands. Her hair was thick and uncombed, gathered loosely under a knit beanie. She didn't speak, didn't laugh, didn't look up. Ava noticed the scar first. Just beneath the girl's left eye, a thin, curved line that faded into the cheek. Old but still visible. Not angry, but present. Like a reminder. The girl stayed close to the wall, knees tucked up, arms wrapped around them. Ava approached slowly, kneeling beside her with care. "Hey," she said gently. "I'm Ava." The girl didn't answer. "That's okay," Ava added. "You don't have to talk." She sat beside her, not too close. Just enough. The workshop carried on. Music, chatter, the snap of combs against hair. But the girl stayed quiet. Ava didn't press. Just sat. After a while, the girl spoke. "Is this place for people who get hurt?" Ava turned toward her. "Sometimes, yes." The girl's fingers gripped the hem of her sleeve. "What if they don't talk about it?" "They don't have to." The girl nodded once, like she was testing the truth of that in her mind. Ava waited. Then, "Do you want something to eat? There's cookies. And juice." The girl shook her head. But 10 minutes later, Ava saw her walking slowly to the snack table. She took a cookie, then 2. No juice. Just water from the cooler. She returned to her spot in the corner. Didn't sit this time. Just stood. Watching. Later, as the group wrapped up, Ava handed out small notebooks, pale blue, soft covers, blank inside. "Write anything you want," she told the girls. Thoughts, lyrics, doodles, or nothing at all. When she reached the girl with the scar, she held out a notebook. The girl looked at it, then at Ava. "Do I have to write my name?" "No," Ava said. The girl took it, turned it over in her hands. Then, softly, "My name's Rena." Ava smiled. "Thank you." Rena clutched the notebook to her chest like something fragile. Then she left without another word. That night, Ava stayed late, cleaning up the room. She gathered the chairs, wiped down the snack table, folded the used towels from the hair kits. She didn't notice the envelope on the windowsill until she went to turn off the speaker. Plain. No writing. Inside, one of the blue notebooks. The first page had one sentence, written in careful block letters. "If someone asks me if I'm okay, I never know how to answer." Nothing else. Ava sat on the edge of the windowsill and reread the sentence 3 times. She didn't cry. But her hand brushed gently over the page like she was trying to smooth the weight behind the words. The next morning, Isaiah came by. No warning. No knock. Just appeared in the shelter's side yard, leaning against the brick wall near the kitchen window. Ava stepped outside, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You hungry?" He shrugged. She handed him a container of leftover lasagna. They sat on the low concrete step, forks scraping quietly against plastic. After a while, Ava said, "There's a girl. New to the group. Her name's Rena." Isaiah didn't respond. "She reminds me of you. Quiet, smart, watching everything." He glanced sideways. "What do you want me to do? Be her role model?" "No," Ava said. "Just, maybe don't disappear right away next time. Let her see you." Isaiah finished his last bite. "That's asking a lot." "I know." He stood. But then he added, "Maybe next Thursday." Ava smiled. He didn't. But he stayed 1 minute longer than usual. And that was enough. It was Saturday afternoon when Sophie walked into the shelter for the first time. Ava had promised Lena she wouldn't overwhelm her, just a visit, she'd said, nothing more. No heavy conversations. No expectations. Just a quiet afternoon. The common room smelled like coffee and lavender cleaning spray. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, making soft patterns on the floor. A few women sat reading. One rocked a baby in a carrier. A teen girl braided another's hair in the corner. Sophie stepped in cautiously, hugging her messenger bag close to her side. Ava met her near the doorway with a warm smile. "You made it." Sophie nodded. "Took the early bus. You want a tour?" Sophie looked around. "Can I just sit for a while?" "Of course." They settled near the windows where the light was brightest. Ava handed her a paper cup of lemonade. Sophie took a sip and looked out across the room. "It's not what I expected," she said quietly. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Sadness. Cold floors. People looking down." Ava smiled. "There's sadness, sometimes. But there's also healing." They sat in silence for a bit, sipping lemonade, listening to the hum of quiet voices. Then Ava spoke gently. "He might come by today." Sophie turned to her. "Isaiah." Ava nodded. Sophie took a deep breath. "I don't want to scare him off." "You won't." Sophie glanced down. "I brought something. In case I saw him." She unzipped her bag and pulled out a small notebook. The cover was deep green, and a ribbon held its place in the middle. "I wrote him a letter," she said, cheeks coloring. "I don't know if it's dumb. I just wanted to." Ava didn't touch it. Just looked at it with gentle eyes. "Would you like me to give it to him?" "No," Sophie said. "If he shows up, I'll give it to him myself." Isaiah arrived around 4. He came in through the back gate, hoodie pulled over his head, hands shoved in his pockets. His eyes scanned the yard before he stepped into the common room. He froze when he saw her. Sophie stood near the bookshelf, pretending to examine a row of old paperbacks. Her shoulders tensed, but she didn't look up. Ava met him halfway. "You okay?" she asked quietly. He gave a slight nod, then glanced toward Sophie again. "She's not here to hurt you," Ava said. "I know who she is. She doesn't know who you are." Isaiah looked at Ava, expression unreadable. "I'm not ready for anything." "You don't have to be," he exhaled, slow. Then he walked over to the table near the window and sat down. Sophie looked up. Their eyes met. Neither smiled. But neither looked away. After a few minutes, she walked over, cautiously, like approaching a wild bird that might fly. "Hi," she said. Isaiah looked at her. She extended the notebook, both hands. "It's not long. You don't have to read it now." He took it without speaking. "I'm Sophie," she added. "I guess I'm your cousin." Isaiah gave a slow nod. "I figured." They stood in the quiet between words. Then he asked, "You write a lot?" "Sometimes." "You good at it?" Sophie tilted her head. "You'll have to be the judge of that." The pause. "Thanks," he said, and tucked the notebook into his jacket. Sophie smiled, a small one, not wide but real. "I hope you come again." "Maybe." That was all. But it was enough. Later, Ava found Isaiah outside near the side gate. He sat on the brick ledge, notebook open in his lap. He wasn't reading, just holding it, tracing the ribbon between his fingers. "She's brave," he said without looking up. "She is," Ava replied. He glanced toward her. "Like you." Ava shook her head gently. "Braver." He closed the notebook, held it to his chest. Then he said, "I didn't know I had family. Not like that." "You always did." "I didn't believe that before." A long pause. Then Isaiah asked, "What now?" Ava leaned beside him. "Now we keep showing up. Little by little." He nodded. Didn't speak again. But when he left that evening, he said goodbye. With words. With his voice. And Ava stood at the gate long after he'd gone, heart full of something she hadn't dared feel in years. The calendar on the fridge still showed July, even though it was already mid-August. No one had flipped it. In the kitchen of Ava's small apartment above the shelter, the fan buzzed lazily. A loaf of banana bread cooled on the counter. She hadn't meant to bake it. It just felt like the kind of day where something warm needed to exist. Then she saw the date. August 14th. She froze. Isaiah's birthday. 17. She sat at the table slowly, eyes still fixed on the corner of the calendar. How had she forgotten? She prided herself on remembering. Every year, even when she didn't know where he was, she lit a candle. Wrote a letter. Baked something sweet just for herself, just to say, "You were born. And I love you." But today, it had slipped past her like a shadow. She buried her face in her hands. At the shelter, Isaiah showed up later than usual. Almost sunset. He didn't knock. Just stood outside the gate, looking up at the windows. Ava found him there, arms crossed, jaw tight. "You forgot," he said, voice low. She didn't ask what. She just nodded. "Yes." Isaiah looked away, blinking fast. "It's fine. Doesn't matter." "It does." He shook his head. "I never expected anything. Not from anyone. I just thought." He stopped. "You thought maybe I'd remember. I just didn't want it to feel like every other year." Ava took a step closer. "I remembered. Just late. Too late." She didn't argue. Instead, she said, 17 years ago today, I held you for 9 minutes. You were wrapped in a blue hospital blanket, and your eyes were wide open. I've remembered that every day since." He didn't speak. So she added, "Come upstairs." He hesitated, then followed. Her apartment was quiet, filled with soft evening light. The banana bread still sat on the counter, untouched. "I didn't bake it for today," she said honestly. "But maybe it was for today anyway." Isaiah sat on the edge of the couch, stiff, like he didn't belong there. Ava sliced 2 pieces. Handed him one. They ate in silence. The bread was warm, soft in the middle, golden at the edges. "You ever had a party?" Ava asked gently. He shook his head. "Once. At a group home. They gave me a card with someone else's name scratched out." Ava closed her eyes for a second. Then opened them. "You deserve better." He didn't answer. She stood and walked to the cabinet. Pulled out a small candle, left over from the supply closet. Then, quietly, she placed it in the center of the table. She didn't light it. Just looked at him. "Would you let me sing?" she asked softly. He laughed, a single dry sound. "You're serious?" "I am." He rubbed a hand down his face. "It's weird." "Only a little." He hesitated, then shrugged. "Fine. Just don't go off key." Ava smiled. And she sang. Just one verse. So unsteady. Her voice cracked on the last word. But she sang it. Isaiah looked at the candle. Then at her. "You gonna light it?" She lit it. The flame flickered quietly between them. "Make a wish," she said. He didn't close his eyes. But he leaned in. And blew it out. Later, as he stood at the door, ready to leave, he looked back. "You really forgot?" "Yes." "You gonna write about that in one of your letters?" "I already did." He gave a small nod. "Good." Then, after a pause, "Thanks for the bread." "You're welcome." He stepped out into the hallway. And just before the door clicked shut behind him, he said, "Next year, don't forget." Ava whispered, "Never again." It was Tuesday when Rena came back. Ava didn't expect her. No one did. She just appeared in the side yard of the shelter, standing by the water spigot with her hands in her pockets and her hood up. Her beanie was gone. So was the fear in her eyes. Mostly. Ava opened the door gently. "You're early." Rena gave a half shrug. "Didn't want to miss cookies." "You remembered." "I never forget cookies." Ava smiled and held the door open wider. Inside, the kitchen smelled like butter and lemons. Sophie had baked that morning, a whole tray of soft, sugar-dusted cookies cooling on the rack. When she saw Rena, she waved. Rena paused. Then nodded. Just once. Isaiah was already in the corner, sitting at the small round table near the window, a notebook open in front of him. He didn't look up, but he knew. He always knew. Rena walked past the cookies first. Then, carefully, sat down across from him. No words. Just silence, the kind that wasn't awkward anymore. Ava watched from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel, heart steady. She didn't need to control the moment. Just let it be. Sophie walked over with 2 cookies wrapped in a napkin. She placed them on the table without saying anything. Then she walked away. Rena stared at the napkin, then at Isaiah. "You like lemon?" she asked. He shrugged. "They're better than the ones from the gas station." She gave the tiniest grin. "Low bar." He looked up. "You draw." "Sometimes." "Me too." That was all. They ate in silence, but this time it was the good kind, the kind that holds space for something to grow. Later that afternoon, Ava sat with Rena in the common room. Just the 2 of them. Rena picked at the edges of her sleeve. "Can I ask you something?" she said, voice low. "Always," Ava replied. "That scar on my face, it's the first thing people see." Ava didn't speak. They act like it explains everything. Like I'm broken. Or dangerous. Or something they should feel sorry for. She paused. "But you didn't." Ava looked her gently in the eye. "Because I know what it's like to be reduced to one thing." Rena tilted her head. "I had a son," Ava said softly. "And I lost him. For years. When people found out, that's all I was to them, the girl who gave up her baby. And now, I'm still that girl sometimes," Ava said. "But I'm also someone who came back. Someone trying." Rena looked down at her hands. "Do you think people ever forget the scars?" Ava leaned in. "No," she said. "But I think the right ones learn to look past them." Rena nodded. Then she asked, "Can I come back next week?" "You don't have to ask." That evening, Isaiah stayed late. He helped wash dishes without being asked. Folded laundry in the back room. Sat with Sophie on the steps, their backs against the door, trading stories about nothing in particular. Ava found him alone in the hallway afterward, staring at the community bulletin board. There was a flyer tacked to the corner. GED classes, Wednesday nights. Isaiah tapped the paper. "You think I'm too late for this?" "Not at all," Ava said. "You'd be great." "I don't know where I'd even start." "You just did." He nodded slowly. Then looked at her. "I still don't know what to call you." "You don't have to call me anything," Ava said softly. "I want to," he admitted. They stood in the quiet hallway. Then he said, "Can I just call you Ava?" She smiled. "Of course." And that was enough. It was raining the morning Ava opened the box. Not a hard rain, more like a hush falling from the sky. The kind that soaks the pavement slowly and smells like something being made new. She sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, the shoebox in front of her. She hadn't opened it in weeks. Not since Isaiah had started coming by more often. Not since he showed her, in his quiet way, that maybe he didn't need those old letters anymore. But she needed to read just one more. Just one. She lifted the lid. Inside, the bundle of folded notes sat just as she'd left them. Dates scribbled on the corners. Edges frayed. The ribbon slightly loosened. She took the one at the bottom, the first one. August 14th, 2008. "You're only a few weeks old, and I haven't seen you since the day they took you. I don't know where you are. I don't even know if you're warm or held or fed. But I need you to know this. I loved you before I even met you. And I will love you after." Ava traced the words with her finger. Then she reached for a fresh sheet of paper. She hadn't written a letter in a while. Not since Isaiah started showing up for real. But today felt different. She wrote slowly, carefully. July 26, 2025. "You came back. Not all at once. But enough to make room for hope. You ate cookies. You talked to your cousin. You folded laundry and helped with dishes and looked at flyers like maybe, just maybe, the future was something you could build. You called me Ava. And that was enough." She folded the paper. This time, she didn't tuck it in the box. She stood, walked across the room, and opened the drawer where she kept an empty photo frame. A simple one, wood, worn at the corners. It had never held a picture. Not yet. She slid the letter inside. And placed it on her windowsill. That afternoon, Isaiah came early. He didn't knock. Just walked in like he'd always been there. Rena followed a few minutes later, holding a sketchbook and wearing a hoodie that actually fit. Sophie came too, balancing a tray of lemon bars and 2 bottles of sparkling juice. They sat in the common room, all of them, like they belonged there. Like something soft had formed around them. Not a family, not yet, but something real. Ava watched from the doorway, then walked over. She sat beside Isaiah. Sophie handed out lemon bars. Rena shared a page from her sketchbook, a pencil drawing of a girl sitting under a tree with a candle burning beside her. No one said what it meant. They didn't have to. Later, as the sun slipped lower behind the shelter's windows, Ava stood and walked to the front of the room. She cleared her throat. I just want to say, thank you. For showing up. For coming back. For making space. The room was quiet, but full. She turned to Isaiah. You okay with sharing one thing? Just a sentence. From anyone. He nodded slowly. Then looked at Sophie. She smiled. I'll go first. She said, I believe people aren't broken, they're just waiting to be heard. Rena followed. Scars don't scare me. Silence does. Isaiah paused. Then said, I'm not the same kid I used to be. And that's not a bad thing. Ava smiled, eyes warm. She didn't add her own sentence. She didn't need to. It was already written, in every step they'd taken back toward each other. That night, after the shelter lights dimmed and the building grew quiet, Ava sat at her windowsill. The rain had stopped. The letter in the frame caught the moonlight. And for the first time in 17 years, she let the box stay open. Not because she needed the past, but because now, she had a future. A week later, Isaiah came back to the shelter carrying a small cardboard box. It wasn't taped shut. Just a lid. Slightly crooked. Worn at the edges. Ava looked at it, then at him. I thought maybe, he said, you could put your letters in here. The new ones. Not the old ones. She took the box gently. Inside was a folded blue paper, blank, waiting. And beside it, a pen. No ribbon this time. Just space. She didn't speak. She just set it on the corner table, next to the photo frame. That night, Rena drew a picture of a tree growing from a broken sidewalk. Sophie added a quote underneath. It doesn't matter where you were planted. Only that you grow. And Isaiah. He stayed until the last light was off. Right before he left, he turned back and asked, will there be another workshop next week? Ava smiled. There always is. If this story meant something to you, take a moment to share it. Maybe someone out there needs to be reminded. You are more than what hurt you. Leave a comment. Let us know your favorite moment. Or just write one thing you've learned about healing. Because your voice might be the letter someone else needs to read.